This is pretty outrageous. That's how a federal judge responded to news that the Trump administration put a woman and her daughter on a plane to El Salvador while their deportation hearing was still ongoing. The judge ordered the plane to turn around and return to the U.S. and also threatened to hold the Attorney General of the United States, Jeff Sessions, in contempt of court. The case was brought by the ACLU, and it challenged the Justice Department's move to curtail immigrants from seeking asylum due to domestic and gang violence in their home countries. Joining me, MSNBC correspondent Jacob Soboroff, who's been following this story from the very beginning, and retired immigration judge Paul Schmidt. Jacob, first off, tell us what happened last night.
It was unbelievable, Katie. There's this case with 8 plaintiffs in federal court. It's brought against specifically Attorney General Jeff Sessions for these new restrictive policies that make the bar much higher for passing what's called a credible fear interview to declare asylum. You mentioned it. Stricter regulations around domestic violence, around gang violence, around sexual abuse. And so one of the plaintiffs in this case, despite the fact the case was in the process of being adjudicated, it was a brought-in case on Tuesday, was put on a plane and deported to El Salvador yesterday in the middle of the case. The judge found out about it because the ACLU brought it up in court, was apoplectic, and actually said in court, turn the plane around and bring it back to the United States. The plane landed in El Salvador. They stayed on the plane. The plane took off. Carmen is the name of the woman, the pseudonym in the case, and her daughter, and headed back to the United States, landed in Texas. And the case now continues. And again, the Attorney General, he threatened to hold the Attorney General of the United States in contempt of court for this behavior by the government.
And the ACLU is challenging this. They don't think that this is a valid ruling or a valid decision by Jeff Sessions. The court is threatening to hold Sessions in contempt. Let's remind everybody the latest numbers of families who are still separated at the border. 2,551. That's the number that were originally separated. 559 are still separated. 365 parents have already been deported. Paul, we do know that it's going to be really difficult to reunite those families, to find those parents who have already been deported. My question to you, given everything we're seeing on this and the way that judges have even been defied, and the way the government isn't living up to these deadlines that are given to them, who's going to be held accountable for this? Is it going to come to Jeff Sessions actually being held in contempt? And what does that look like?
It should. Katie, I'm stunned, absolutely stunned, as somebody that worked for the Justice Department for 35 years. I've been involved in the field for 45 years. The level of disrespect for the judiciary, the unprofessionalism of the Department of Justice attorneys, and the just plain stupidity of the litigation strategy under Jeff Sessions is simply stunning. Now, I'll tell you that when I was the general counsel of the old INS, we had a few instances where, by mistake, somebody who was under a stay got put on an airplane. You go in there, you basically get on your knees, you tell Judge, I'm so sorry. It's going to be taken care of. We apologize. I'll tell my clients not to do that. These attorneys go in and basically, it's our Judge, your problem. I'm stunned.
Well,
Rule one,
because they're doing that, because they're doing that, and they're shrugging their shoulders, as you just said. What happens after that? What recourse do the judges have to hold the government accountable for this beyond what they're already doing?
Well, I think Judge Sullivan just showed you. I actually think judges have been remarkably tolerant. The judge in the separation of families case, basically the Justice Department took an in-your-face position of, Judge, you find them, and the judge has worked to try and get, told the government to find them. But that's an in-your-face position. And I think Sessions definitely should be held in contempt. And ultimately, he can go to jail. And that's exactly where he belongs.
Wow. Jacob Soboroff, what are you looking out for? What happens next?
Well, let me just say, Katie, Judge Sullivan in the case in Washington, and then Judge Sabraw here in the Southern District. Look, I knew nothing about immigration law and immigration cases and what happens in federal court before I was down there at those facilities in South Texas and saw these kids locked up in cages. Judge Sabraw is the reason that these children are being reunited in the first place. The government never had a plan to reunite these families. The ACLU brought this case, the Miss L case out here in California. And the judge basically said, where is the plan? The government said there is no plan. And the judge literally ordered the government to come up with a plan. And that is what is being carried out right now.
Totally remarkable. Jacob Soboroff, remarkable, unbelievable. You name your superlative.
Unbelievable for you,
your
Katie.
adjective. Unbelievable. Thank you very much. Jacob Soboroff. Paul Schmidt, welcome to the program. Thank you as well.
Thank you, Katie.